going to talk a little bit about the context that we're going to do, because we're in Chronicles now. We've just finished Kings. We've seen the destruction of both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. But now we're going to go kind of back in time. So what are the books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles? The books of Chronicles provide an overview of events from the creation through the rise of King Cyrus of Persia. That goes further than what Kings did. So when they talk about, are they not in the Chronicles of the Kings that I marked often in the version of Kings, that actually isn't these books, even though it says Chronicles in it. But it shows that people are writing their histories as they're happening, and this is one of those where they actually take from several sources for Chronicles. Originally written as a single work, Chronicles was divided into 2 separate volumes in Greek translation of the Bible. While much of the history described in Chronicles overlaps with accounts in the books of Samuel and Kings, there are also accounts that are exclusive to Chronicles. That's one of the reasons why we don't read all of it, is because we've already covered it in Samuel and Kings. But there are things that you can pull from it, and maybe in some of the notes you might have noticed. I've read a few notes as we're reading along where it goes to Chronicles and gives me more information. And we'll find that today as we read, or this week as we read. The book of 2nd Chronicles primarily focuses on the events of the southern kingdom of Judah. It generally mentions the northern kingdom only in context of its interactions with Judah. The authorship of Chronicles remains uncertain, but most scholars suggest that the books were likely written after the Babylonian exile, possibly the 4th century BC. Books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles can be organized as follows. No, I thought I'd do this instead of going through the headings, because there's a lot of headings. So, 1st Chronicles 1 through 9 is genealogies of the patriarchs and the sons of Jacob. I don't think we want to go through all the genealogies. You certainly don't want to hear me try to pronounce all the names again. Then we have 1st Chronicles 10 to 2nd Chronicles 9, the reigns of the King David and Solomon. And it seems like there's even more detail than what was in 1st Kings. But there is, it's the same story of them. And 2nd Chronicles 10 through 35, which a lot of it we'll cover 14 to 20 or something. The division of the kingdom and history of the kings of Judah. 2nd Chronicles 36 is the destruction of Jerusalem, the exile of the Israelites from the southern kingdom, and Cyrus's proclamation that the Israelites could return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. So a lot of history there, but it's a lot of the stuff we've already covered. So when you hear names, yes, they are the same names that we talked about in 2nd Kings. And there's a reason why we're going to jump from 2nd Chronicles into instead of going into 1st Chronicles. We don't need all the history of the things that we've already gone through, the genealogies, the stories of King David and Solomon. What we're interested in it is what happened to the kingdoms. Why have they fallen? And what preserved them so long? The kingdom of Judah was surrounded by armies from three powerful enemy nations. Armies from three powerful enemy nations were all advancing at once, prepared for battle. In this desperate moment of need, Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, turned to the King of heaven and earth. Jehoshaphat gathered his people at the temple and prayed. I'm glad we're going back to Jehoshaphat a little bit more. In the other one, we really followed the wicked king of the north a lot, and how he did it. Ahaz, was it? And Jehoshaphat would come in and work with Ahaz, but I think Jehoshaphat is an amazing, or Jehoshaphat, I guess is I should say it. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Is more interesting, and they'll give more detail here in Chronicles. He acknowledged their human weakness and pleaded for deliverance. In response, the Lord promised his protection. Fear not, nor be dismayed. I remember when my girls were growing up, one of them had scrolled that onto the boards of their bunk bed, this scripture. We might not have an invading army at our doorstep threatening to destroy us, but sometimes we do feel surrounded by adversity and evil. Our path to deliverance is the same one Jehoshaphat sought, and our prayer can be like his too. O God, our God, we have no might against this great company that cometh against us, neither know we what to do, but our eyes are upon thee. You will read about Jehoshaphat and other kings in Judah. Consider their faith-driven reforms. Victories and challenges can apply to your own life. For an overview of the book of 2 Chronicles, see Chronicles in the Bible dictionary. And we've kind of read that already. So here's the topics we're going to discuss. Trusting God who will bring me peace. So we'll talk about Asa, king of Judah. What's interesting is to put down, and I haven't done this, but they did it in our Sunday school, put down all the kings of Judah and all the kings of the northern tribes of Israel, and see how many of the kings were considered good or righteous in Judah and Israel. First of all, Israel had no kings that were considered righteous at any time. And the southern kingdom, however, had quite a few good kings. Most of them were reigned in goodness in some way or another. Some fell away after a time, and so far, and so forth. But most of them reigned with the idea of serving God. He faced many challenges, just like we all do today. As you read about the trials he faced, notice where he put his trust and how that changed over time. And you can do this yourself. Why do we sometimes stop trusting in the Lord? What else do we learn from Asa's life? And we can go through that. And also, Todd D. Christofferson, I'm going to try to put that in this week's reading as well. Quotes in there. I can defend the truth even when it's unpopular. The prophet Micaiah must have felt a lot of pressure to predict success for the kings of Jehoshaphat and Ahab, and we did discuss him in Kings, and he really was quite sarcastic in the way that he approached things. Oh yeah, you will do really well if you go against them. Not, that sort of thing. I just love the response between him and Ahab. It's sort of like Ahab's like, he doesn't say anything good about me. Oh, well, tell you what, you'll do really well. Don't say that. Okay, well, you'll actually be you'll lose. See, I told you to say something bad about me. It's really, I love their little banter, you might say. I don't know if that's the right word. What are some situations which you might face pressure like Micaiah? What gives you courage to stand up for the Lord and His teachings? Then we have the thing that was discussed before, the Ammonites, Moabites, and Edomites coming against Jerusalem and King Jehoshaphat. How do you apply his actions in challenging circumstances you face? So in difficult times, I can turn to God and His prophets, is what it is. I can't wait to talk a little more about Jehoshaphat, because I really think he's a wonderful king that tries to turn to God as much as he can. How has God blessed you for believing in Him and following His prophets? I'm just going to read this. My experience is that once you stop putting question marks behind the prophet statements and put exclamation points instead and do it, the blessings just pour. Even I never ask myself, when does a prophet speak as a prophet and when does he not? My interest has been, how can I be more like him? I love that statement that he gives. I remember back when he was, I think it was when the same year he was made prophet, but President Eyring gave examples of how Russell M. Nelson followed the prophets. One of those is that he was asked to learn to speak Mandarin. And he took it up. He took it really seriously, learned it. Like, why am I learning to speak Mandarin? And then he spent considerable time as a physician in China and could speak the language. Little things like that. Sometimes you don't realize why, but they have it. There is this video, a secure anchor, which is really good to do. Identify simple statements of truth. Elder Neil A. Maxwell taught, the scriptures offer us so many doctrinal diamonds, and when the light of the Spirit plays upon their several facets, the sparkle with celestial sense and illuminate the path we are to follow. I love that. Just a visual that you can get from that. As you study the scriptures, consider taking time to identify, mark, and ponder short yet powerful messages. I hope you're getting that from some of the things that I read. Pride leads to destruction. Uzziah's reign began with great accomplishments but ended with tragedy. He's one of those ones that I say he's quite righteous, but later on he has more of a difficult time. But that's still, he had a time of righteousness as well. What would you say was Uzziah's turning point in Uzziah's life? And we'll go through that. And it says, keep in mind when we read these verses, he does do some sacrifices and things in the temple. And it says, keep in mind that at this time only priests were allowed to burn incense in the temple. Why do you think King Uzziah disobeyed God? What do you learn from this tragic experience? Remember, we had a similar one with King Saul and how tragic that was. I can be a peacemaker, and Hezekiah again is one that I'm glad we're going to talk about again. And I love the fact that he tried to invite the rival kingdom of Israel to gather to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. And the Israelites hadn't been able to do that for many years, so they didn't know everything what to do. What impresses you about the invitation, how it was received both by the Israelite guests and by their hosts in Judah? I can't wait to read a little more about that, because it's just an interesting part of the history. And could you imagine if they all had come back at that time and stayed faithful? It would have been interesting. And unfortunately, Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, wasn't righteous at all either. But it would have been really interesting. It's a what if. What do you learn from Hezekiah's response and results of his response? So I'm looking forward to reading more of this, and I hope you are too. And we'll get into it in next time.